All right. So now let's get started. And I'm super excited today on the Friday. During the busy tax season, I got Jonathan as an accountant and lovely Tanya, my favorite bookkeeper in Ontario. They are both my guests today to discuss about the collaboration between the accountant and bookkeeper during tax season, and also what's the best practice of their workflow to serve their mutual clients. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm Jessie. I'm the account manager for British Columbia, and I looking for help firms adopting the cloud. And majorly is our QuickBooks Online and third-party apps partners. And also I'm looking for the firm to stand out to be the firm of the future. So hopefully you are the next one. And a little commercial here, our QB Connect San Jose is November, has decided the date. So if you want to join, feel free to purchase a ticket and now. So let's get started with Jonathan. So a lot of you already know Jonathan, so why don't I get Jonathan to introduce yourself, just in case somebody new watch the video later who doesn't know you. So there you go.
All right. Well, I'm Jonathan Carter. I'm the owner of CATA Accounting Solutions. On the call as well, though he's muted, is Bob, who's our senior accountant, and he's collaborating as well with Tanya as part of our workflow. We work with a lot of different firms in a lot of different capacities. And our vision is for the future, all firms are going to have to, if they can't do it in-house themselves, at least through their network, be able to provide clients with end-to-end solutions. And that's how we started working with, I think the original three were Tanya, Jenny, and Tamitha. So it's a really good company to be in. And since then, it's exploded quite a bit. And we're loving it. And our opinion is that the clients end up much better served through this collaboration. Tanya?
Yep,
Everybody
I
knows
completely agree. Yep, absolutely, completely agree. Okay, so to introduce myself then, I am Tanya Hilts and the founder of Bookkeeping Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. And many of you may have seen me for the value pricing template. I'm trying to make things keep it easy for bookkeepers. This is my motto. So yeah, I do a lot of webinars with Jessie or on my own to try to help the industry just grow and everybody collaborate and better themselves. And yeah, as Jonathan said, I work with Jonathan. He's we collaborate with a few accountants, but Jonathan is our top one that we deal with. I like to have some people that I can refer to. If clients have their own accountants to deal with, that's great. But if not, then I refer people to over to CATA. And at this point, we can, we've got our processes hammered down, and we're like one of the same team. So it really makes a difference when you know how the other person works. And we've been working together probably going on 3 years now. Is it, Jonathan? Three?
It's getting close,
just
yeah.
Over 3 years? Yeah.
It'll be 3 years come May.
Yeah, around.
You know exactly what smile I'm talking about.
Oh, yes. Yes. Fun months. Anyway, so yeah, so we, I found that, when it came, I actually was looking into doing T2s myself, and I'd heard, oh yeah, they're easier than T1s, and I started to look into them. I met Jonathan, and Jonathan and just embodied the same values and, customer service focus and, everything about, the end client. And I said, forget it. I don't need to learn this. I've got, I have enough on my plate, and decided very quickly to partner with Jonathan, and it's been great ever since.
Well, that's good to hear. And it's like a matchmaking. Yeah. You guys find each other. It's a perfect match. And then everything's happy from now on.
That's exactly.
So now I just want to pass to Jonathan. And Jonathan, would you be able to share your screen? We just want to see a little bit short demo of how you use the Workpapers in QBOA.
Okay, sure.
So when you go to the blue jeans on the right side, share screen, you can share your screen to us.
It says continue sharing. Am I sharing now?
There's
So
somebody.
right now I'm sharing.
I am not sharing now.
Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Jonathan, you can click on the right. You see, okay, now I see something loading.
You should be able to see a QuickBooks file.
There we go. Yeah.
123 Test
Okay.
Company. All right.
Yeah. So do you want
Tanya,
me to unmute Bob? Does Bob need to work with you with this one?
No.
Okay, good.
So this is just one example of one of the things that we can do. I might have to go back and re-add on this one. I can't remember which file we added you to, Tanya. Whether it was this one or it was, I believe it was an actual company file, right?
I'll pop in and look on my end of things. I know I'm added as a team member. Let me just log out.
I'm sorry, just to maintain confidentiality of my clients, I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and make sure that Tanya is assigned to this. And once I get to that point, I'll show exactly kind of what I'm doing.
Okay.
No, that was the only file that I have access to under here is my training file because I think I added you as an accountant.
So it's your training file that we're supposed to.
Right, because I added you as an accountant and you added me as a team member.
All right.
So while Jonathan's pulling that up, just to kind of let everybody know that currently in working papers, we found a way to work around it and to work within what it has. But currently within working papers, you can work, you put your notes, your attachments, and only you and your team can see that. I found that when I did a year-end through working papers, it was beautiful. It was nice. It was flawless. I sent the information off to Jonathan and to another accountant, and I was devastated when I found out that they could not see it. So
now I can see CBS training.
Yeah, so that's
this
my
is
training file.
This is Tanya's training file. So I'm going to go into the working papers. Hopefully, I can open up your class transactions.
Sorry, let me just explain real quick. So what we did is if I'm the bookkeeper, and this is my bookkeeping file, I've added the accountant on, so I've added Jonathan on as the accountant. Now, he can access his working papers, and even though it's my file, I still can't go in and see his. He still can't see mine because that is straight to the user, and we're separate firms. So all he does is on his back end, he added me as a team member, and so therefore I can now have access, adding me as a team member to this. So now we're working with the same working papers. Hopefully we can get into it to change their minds on that so that we don't have to do a workaround and it'll be very straightforward. But until that time, this is the workaround that we found and we've tested it out and it works beautifully.
There was quite the animated discussion at Connect actually about this kind of collaboration, and some bookkeepers were vehemently against it. No, that's my file. I don't want the accountant having access to my working papers. So I think it's really going to be an interesting wire to climb across as far as Intuit's concerned with whether or not that should be available to everybody or if we should be using this current workaround. Now, what we do is when we have a look at a tax return, we do what's called a first look file. Now, before we discovered this, we were using Google Sheets all the time. We run a trial balance. We go over and we just look at a high-level view and usually have some questions. So like, say, for instance, inventory is in a credit position. We might like make a note and say, hey, like, can you clean this up and send it back when it's ready? Things like that. Now, the thing that I really like about being able to invite Tanya here is we can both keep notes here. The difference is this can't currently track who's saying what. So we need to preface it with our initials. On our methodology that we use with Google Sheets is a little bit, we can see who wrote what when. We can go back and track all changes, and we actually have different columns for different stages in the process. But it ends up being a lot. And then, of course, Tanya has made a comment, and I've made a comment back. We can both see these. And Tanya has also uploaded a file that I can now see here. So this is one possible way of collaborating using the working papers function. Tanya, did you have anything you wanted to add about this?
Not really. Just, I mean, from a bookkeeping perspective, I found when I did this, I had my fastest, cleanest year end ever because of what you're able to view and see and hear. So when I went through, I could do a comparison of a quick comparison of the balances. And I was able to go in and write notes, which unfortunately you couldn't see at that point, but write the notes to anticipate your questions. And I was able to, as I say, just go down, kind of anticipate a lot. So the year end, again, it was less work for you to do. I was able to get everything answered, you know, a large majority right away. And we ended up having to go back to Google Sheets and working on that one. But that's what I liked about this, so that I could look and I could see and anticipate, you know, again, a lot of questions that you may already have had and come up with, so that way we weren't wasting time going back and forth and back and forth. It was already there.
Actually, you know, I think you touched upon a great kind of value add point that bookkeepers, before it comes to the accountant, should definitely be looking at and discussing with their client. Is this variance column here? I mean, variance of 1,700% should definitely be investigated. As we can see, you know, undeposited funds, drastic increase. There's probably some degree of cleanup that's required in that particular category.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and since, so even though I haven't been able to use working papers now until we figure this out. There was a year end that I did, 3-4 months ago. I finished it. I again went in because I had gone through this. I used the same habit. It took me longer to get the information to be able to pull it, and I wasn't able to work as quickly and cleanly as I was with here. But I actually received a compliment back from that accountant, and this is an accountant that I only have one client with. We don't have any type of real relationship. We've never even spoken on the phone. It's just literally one email back and forth, one or two once a year. And we've been dealing with the same client for 3 consecutive years. And she actually complimented and said the file, there was like no other questions. She was able to process with what she had. And she complimented on, you know, the quality of the work at year end. So that to me definitely showed a lot of value for it to be enough of a noticeable difference for her to mention something afterwards.
Tanya, that was doing what? Using the variances to kind of anticipate questions?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to pull my reports and recreate this in an Excel spreadsheet, but basically the same information. So the same information on here. So I used I set my spreadsheet up, used it like working papers to do the extra work, to do the extra anticipation and answer those questions before she asked them.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. No, that was it. Just said answer them before she asked them, or do that cleanup that maybe I would not have seen because maybe I wouldn't have seen the variant, so it wouldn't have jumped out at me unless I actually dug in deeply.
Yeah.
Right.
So can I have a better understanding? For Jonathan, when you look for a bookkeeper and you need to do the year end, so what's the best you expect from a bookkeeper when they pass on the document to you? So what's your ideal, or if everything works okay, what do you need from a bookkeeper?
A year-end trial balance, if everything's in good shape, should be good to start with our questions. I'm not going to get into the full list because that's really is what our webinar series is about.
The ideas.
But some rough ideas. Well, we expect the account balances, number one, to be in the proper direction. We expect, bank accounts to be in a debit position. If they're in a credit position, that's possible they're in overdraft, but it needs to tie to the statement. There have been times where we've seen the statement and it shows, a balance of say about $10,000, but there's, negative $30,000 in the bank account on the books because transactions have been manually added and not reconciled properly. Some other examples, negative inventory I mentioned before, negative AP, negative AR. Amounts hanging around in AP and AR, I mean, maybe it's because I'm an accountant, I'm a little bit anal retentive. They really bother me. When a client overpays or underpays, like say 16 cents here, or 50 cents there, I like to see those cleaned up. But that's really an immaterial number. What are some other common ones? We always request all legal invoices, and that's because there's a different tax treatment for some particular legal expenses over others. What are some other things? I would really like to see the payroll liability account, HST account, and the corporate income tax account reconciled to the information that CRA has on the portal. That when we get that, it's absolutely stunning. That's like, wow, they've really done a really good job with this file. I'm just trying to keep, bad debt. There's another example of one that is often sitting there, but, there might be an invoice that's 165 days old and really should be written off, but, it's still sitting around, even though it might not be collectible. Those kind of things. Was there anything specific in those areas you wanted to touch on? Tanya, what have we bugged you for in the past?
Yeah, Tanya, why don't you say something about when you're getting ready to pass on the information to Jonathan, what's your best practice? What do you think Jonathan needs the most and make him so happy?
Well, as Jonathan said, definitely one thing that I've always done, there's only one client that I haven't done it on, and that's a very different relationship with that accountant. But your GST stuff, I don't pass anything else on my HST, GST, my liabilities, my payroll liabilities. Those, we pull those off. That is definitely a part of our cleanup. I like to go through, make sure everything is reconciled. If there's something that is not caught, but I think Jonathan did catch one. He said, well, the bank balance doesn't match. Well, everything was reconciled. That was one of those ones where QBO had an issue, something happened, the bank feed stuttered, whatever the reason was. So we just unreconciled and re-reconciled. We now have a practice that every month we're checking and we lock once we've closed the books or reconcile every month. We close the book so that way it can't go back and change anything that maybe we might not catch. So with everything, there's been a learning curve. Again, like as Jonathan said, he does want to know with the AR balance. That's one thing he questions. Definitely the variance. Like I've learned a lot from working with Jonathan as well to be able to, because I want to be able to pass the file over. And if there's something that I can do versus him, then that's great. And especially from the client perspective, if it can keep, their bills down, they're happy, less time for Jonathan, less having to go back and forth. If it's nice, it's clean, then it's good for the client and that's good for both of us. And again, like the office supplies, again, if there's a large jump or a large decrease, rent, have there been 12 entries for rent? 12 entries for lease payments, or are there 13 or are there 11? If there's only 11 or 13, something missing. So basically what I've started doing is going through the balance sheet and just clicking on every account on the balance sheet and taking a quick look. And then the profit and loss, same thing. Just click on there and take a very quick look. It's funny. That sounds well, and it sounds like it probably takes longer to do a year and clean up than the way I used to do, which is like, oh, is there anything that I need to look on and just kind of randomly go in and check? But it actually is takes less time because I have a system, I have a process, and I'm catching everything and just I guess, with that.
I'd like to just add on to that. Oh.
You first, Jonathan. After you finish, I will ask more questions.
Okay, I'd just like to add on to that. That monthly review of those accounts can show you holes in your system that you can repair. Yeah. And when all your systems are firing, you're literally just looking at it and essentially checking off a mental box saying, that's fine. But when things aren't in place, it's important to have that feedback loop so that when we make a mistake, we go back and we make sure that the process is in place so that mistake is not made again. Because it's happened in one file, it could happen in all the files, right? So it's part of kind of a continual improvement strategy that I know Tanya and I both use. And I just want to say a quick 2 seconds about the bank reconciliation issue. So the bank reconciliation, when you pull the report, it's a snapshot in time. It's how things looked at that point. So if there being changes after the fact, that's what causes things to not appear correct. And I agree with Tanya. Best practice is once the banks are reconciled, the month is closed, it's locked, and no transactions are made beyond that, and everything should be fine. Tanya, you seem like you had something you wanted to say.
So
yeah.
I was wondering. So between Jonathan and Tanya, I will have two scenarios. So one is if this client using QuickBooks Desktop, I want to understand more specific detail. How did you guys get this year-end done? So if the customer on the QuickBooks Desktop 2018, and when Tanya start the file, do the bookkeeping, everything. So from that point, what's the workflow from Tanya to Jonathan to make this client's file so smoothly transition and then get the tax done? So what's the specific steps you take if the customer is on QuickBooks Desktop?
Okay, and I'm actually working on one for desktop right now as we speak to go to Jonathan.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I was hoping to have it to him the beginning of this week, but I can't. I need the client's giving me the accountant file. I can't do the cleanup I need to do in the accountant file. So I've asked him to get me a backup file that I can work on this weekend, and then get it back. Just there's different things he wants me to do that won't carry forward. But so I basically, kind of do the same type of things. I'm going through the balance sheet, the trial balance. I'm making sure everything's reconciled. This client, I look a little closer in because I don't do the day-to-day work. The client just brings me in if there's any consultation. Otherwise, I do the year-end stuff. So because I'm not the one working on it, I'm not checking the file monthly. I'm going to go through, I'm going to do my checks. I'm going to pull a report to see if there's anything over or $500 he's corp that maybe should have been a tool. He's, a tool or some type of asset, a capital asset. I'm going to, again, go through the profit and loss. I'm going to go through the balance sheet. Those will take me into all the accounts. If I'm going through the balance sheet, I'll be able to click in and see the AR. Is there anything that needs to be cleaned up in the AR, the AP? Do the bank statements matches? So again, if I follow through and go through both the balance sheet and the profit and loss, I won't be able to, there's nothing to be missed. I won't be able to miss anything unless I haven't done my job properly. This one will have to work together in Google Sheets. So when I send it over, Jonathan will set up Google Sheets similar to the way Working Papers is, and we'll communicate back and forth that way as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually have to save the backup copy, then pass on to Jonathan?
Yeah, at that point, I'll be passing Jonathan along the accountant's copy and giving the client back their copy because they're in it every day. They need to work in it every day.
Yeah.
So I'll just be taking it at the year end. And most of the time, I can do some cleanup because the client wants me to do specific AR and AP cleanup. If I do that, it's not going to carry forward. It was one of those highlighted fields in 2018 saying it won't carry forward. Otherwise, everything else I was going to do should have been fine. We've been trying to get him on QBO. Unfortunately, his inventory system is a very complex inventory and multi-currency. So every few years, we get him to, work with it, a test in QBO. He'll eventually get there, but I don't know if it'll still be this year. So it'll be a few more years probably.
So on Jonathan's side, you got the fixed clean book backup copy of desktop from Tanya, and then pass on to you. So what's the next you need to do?
All right. So what we do is it's our standard practice for anything coming from QuickBooks Desktop or any other platform to actually create a QuickBooks Desktop file. We follow the first look process. Now that could be internal, it could be external, it could be coming from spreadsheets. So it might, be going to the business owner themselves, things like that, where we have our various questions and concerns and so on. And we document that all out. In that spreadsheet, we also outline all of kind of what we've done, and we also outline all the adjusting journal entries, and we make them very clear. And it's our belief to be open and communicative, collaborative. So we actually return that to the person who we're communicating with, whether that's Tanya or a business owner or somebody else. That's the way we do that. And then at the end, of course, we book all of our adjusting entries in the QBOA, the QuickBooks Desktop accountant file, and we run that.
I love that.
For QBDA, or the fact that I'm automatically saying QBOA. Anyway.
I know, I love that. That's an automatic instinct. That means you think about QBOA all the time. That's a good sign.
Well, it's the way we're pushing things. I mean, we do some work with desktop, but we actually don't accept desktop clients outside tax anymore. So for our side of bookkeeping, we don't work with QuickBooks Desktop at all. So where was I there? We book all the adjusting entries, and then of course the profile integration with QuickBooks Desktop is fantastic. So that's our tax software. That's how we do it. And then once everything's finalized, we send the adjusting entries back. Because I'll be frank, people forget things, mistakes happen, people don't think about things, and sometimes, even as accountants, we booked all the adjusting entries that we thought we needed, and we might find one or two more when we're actually doing the return process.
Wow,
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great. That's what I want to know, because I don't know too much about because QuickBooks Desktop is like you have one person that Tanya is working on that file. You cannot do anything because anything you do is not going to reflect on her file, right? So I just understand what's the most efficient.
The accountant's copy creates a cutoff.
Okay.
Right? So the users on the desktop, the users on the desktop aren't supposed to be able to make entries prior to the cutoff date, and the accountant can only make entries related to that year.
And there's, again, still some limitations within it, which is exactly why I need a full copy to do what this client needs me to do for the cleanup.
So another scenario is your favorite QBOA. The client already on QBO, and Tanya already did all the fantastic job, get all the information Jonathan needs. So what's your workflow in there? The client books in QBO, Tanya did everything she can, and how can we get that workflow sorted out the least time to get most of the work done, QBO?
Okay, well, QBO, I'm going to go back to sharing screen again. Using QBO is great because we can go right in and we can do our adjusting entries right here. Any other transactions that may have been posted by, say Tanya opens a period back up, she has to reclassify something, it's all going to show up in here, give us our final adjusted trial balance. So let's assume that everything is perfect and we're just on to our adjusting entries. We'll go through and we'll put them right in here. We'll do our adjusting entries right through the working paper. Now, here's something that probably the bookkeepers are, for the most part, not dealing with unless you do T2 tax, and that's the GIFI. Why is this? There we are. So, the mapping your chart of accounts is extremely important. I think a lot of the GIFI that QBO auto-populates are related to the way the chart of accounts is set up. So if you set it up right, odds are a lot of the GIFI are going to be right. But say, for instance, in here, you can see the ones that are missing and where we have to put them and so on. We actually review them all just to make sure that nothing funny is happening before saving the GIFI file and then importing it to profile. I don't know if that really answered your question. I think that was more process-based. But essentially what we find is working in here to do your adjusting entries and then in other tabs to do your exploring, I find are the most effective way to get things done. One really cool kind of tool you can use is if you're using Chrome, you can use different IDs, and those different IDs will let you have different company windows open at the same time if you have to compare, say, intercompany balances or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct. So you can have multiple company open in the browser, so you can compare company A, company B, company 3 in different user ID of browser. Yeah,
you have to use a different browser ID.
Now, I'd also like to say about working papers, just to jump in here, is that if we've got a sole prop and we're doing that ourselves, working papers, we can still do our sole prop in working papers. Right now, the GIFI codes won't bring it over into profile, but I have been on Graham for, I can't even tell you how many years about that, and I've done rapid testing, and maybe that's hopefully going to come sometime soon, but I'm sure it'll be here eventually to bring that into the profile for the T2s, but it's still a great tool to use for our T1s, but still a great tool to use for our T1s, because why shouldn't we have the same type of cleanup and the same process and the same, I guess, detailed work done on our sole props that we are on our corporations? And I've always said, this sole prop corporation, I'm not going to treat them any different. I'm still going to treat my year-ends the same. And working papers is great for me to go in and deal with my year-ends that way, and it books everything back. So, even if you feel, you don't have any accounts that you're, collaborating, with right now, and maybe this whole system won't work for the T2s, get in, use it for your sole props. Get used to it, because I have no doubt that there will be a time that there will be an easier way to be able to collaborate with accountants using working papers.
Wow, that's great. Well, I have another question. So a lot of bookkeepers, maybe they don't know how to prepare for the year end for the first time if they're new to the industry. So I just want to know, as Tanya is a bookkeeper, for a new bookkeeper just start this bookkeeping journey, and what do you think your advice will be the people who try to look for accountant to work with to get the year end? What's your advice to a new bookkeeper, what they should do to help the accountant get the year end done if they are no experience, they are new?
You know what? A lot of it is common sense. Common sense and thinking like Revenue Canada. So every transaction, and I've had some accountants and bookkeepers say that I'm very strict, which is true. It's everything. It's about compliance. So when I look at everything, whether it be processing that transaction or whether I'm going through year end, I look at the same things. I look at it with the eye of a CRA auditor. For, is it reasonable? Is it justifiable? And is there proof? The accountant needs to do the same type of thing. So if we have any asset that's over $500 that needs to be written off, they need to see a receipt. They need to see the legal receipts. I know this. So as I'm processing, I try to pull that out and have it ready so that I'm not searching for that receipt or having to go back at year-end time. So I do have a folder in Smart Vault that we use, which is I put my year-end. So if I look at something I know they're going to need for year-end, I pop that in as I've got it going, and I'm building it that way. And then again, look at the reasonability test. 12 vehicle payments, 12 monthly rent receipts, 12. Again, if you're putting the reasonability test to everything, and you kind of take a step back and look at it that way, justifiable, reasonable, and proof. That if you just try to look at it that way, I think that's the best advice that I can offer.
I would say, this is just my 2 cents. We've really noticed there's a big difference between bookkeepers who are professional bookkeepers and bookkeepers who have some on-the-job experience who've decided to become bookkeepers full-time. I definitely think there's a lot of value in the IPPC designation, and I think that there's a lot to be said for the difference in quality of bookkeeper you get between somebody who is, for lack of a better term, designated versus not designated.
I've been designated since August.
that's not to say that undesignated people are not good, but I'm finding there's a lot more of a kind of a variance. Once people are designated, I find that it's pretty consistently good.
So that's my continued question to your point, Jonathan. What's your advice to other accountants if they don't have a Tanya yet? They don't have somebody reliable as a bookkeeper. They are looking for one. What's your advice for an accountant when they're looking for a bookkeeper? What's the criteria you advise them to look at as a priority when they look for somebody to work with?
Well, I've always been a big believer in attitude is everything. I mean, that's what it comes down to for me. Attitude, a good positive attitude that's willing to take the feedback and make the changes that need to be made, and willing to work to improve. We work with a lot more than just Tanya, but we found that, some bookkeepers are like, no, I'm going to do it this way. And it's like, well, that way is wrong. Or, something like that. So really, I think attitude is everything. And then knowledge of the technology. We really have positioned ourselves to work with QuickBooks Online. That's our bread and butter. And we work almost exclusively with Intuit products. But that was a strategic decision that we made. And if you're going to be looking for a bookkeeper in that area, look for a bookkeeper in that area. When I get a referral for Sage, I don't send the referral to Tanya because Tanya doesn't want
And I wouldn't take it.
But I do have people that I've met through like Mississauga Board of Trade and things like that who might be more appropriate for that file.
Well, and to say like what Jonathan said, that's exactly right. The reason why we started, why I guess we decided to work with Jonathan initially and why it's worked out so well is because he understands. There's so many, and anybody bookkeeper that is here will understand when those clients or those accountants put those journal entries in or give you those journal entries with the tax right in the entry, they don't understand how it works, how it flows in QBO. And I've had accountants question me, why didn't you do the entry just like I told you to? Because it's not going to flow well. So obviously if you're looking for somebody to align yourself with for going forward, again, as Jonathan said, find somebody that understands the technology that you're using.
Find your tribe.
So how? Yeah. The thing is that there's so many people out there looking for jobs, right? So for example, Jonathan want to hire somebody. What do you look at? Do you look at the criteria like, they get a certification from the IPC or the CPB, and then they have a certification for QuickBooks Online, and what other qualities you're looking at?
Like
other
for
than
hiring
the attitude.
Hiring internally?
Yeah. So for example, if you have a firm, you have bookkeeping department, right?
Yeah. So what I've looked for is, of course, attitude is the number one thing. And the number two is the ability to learn. I don't really care if they're QuickBooks Online certified or not, but I definitely want to see some bookkeeping experience. If they're not designated, that's fine. I'll encourage them to become designated once they're here. But attitude number one and the ability to learn number two. Because even in the few years I've been working with QuickBooks Online, it's changed a lot. And it's going to be the nature of the industry. With the apps out there, there's going to be mergers and acquisitions. Apps that worked yesterday are not necessarily going to work tomorrow. And tomorrow something better can always come out. So we really have to be positioned to be able to adapt and learn the new technologies and the new idiosyncrasies as they come up.
Sounds perfect. So last, I heard you guys are trying to do a little bit tips in the next future months. So I want to know more details about your webinar so I can learn more in the future. What about tips I can pass on to my clients? So.
All right. So I actually think we have more than a year's worth of topics. Last month we did, it's going to be the last Wednesday of every month, hosted by Tanya and Bookkeepers Bootcamp. And we come on and we do a very brief 15-minute-ish presentation. And then we have 15 minutes for questions. Really short, really focused. So last month was a bit of an overview, and I believe this next month we're doing AR and bad debt. So you can imagine, it's not exactly an 45-minute presentation with questions, really short and sweet. And then we get the opportunity to actually deal with people who are dealing with these issues and help the attendees resolve any questions they might have.
Yeah, and if we didn't have a lot of people the first time, because a lot of people wanted just a recording, so I think we had like 6 or 7 or something show up, and they were a quiet bunch at first. So from the bookkeeping perspective, I'm able to go in and ask the questions that I think anybody that will be watching later would want to know. The calls or the webinars will be recorded and will be shared out. And registration is actually on our website, cloudbookkeepingservices.ca, under Bookkeepers Corner, or you can find on the event link on the Bookkeepers Corner Facebook page, and it will be, hopefully by the end of today, on the QBO and Quinty Facebook page under the events that you can sign up for the webinars is there as well too.
So each session is one issue you discuss about specifically.
Yep.
The topics are listed on the event. However, they are subject to change. So the initial one was not supposed to be AR, so it is subject to change. But if you sign up, you want to sign up for all of them, you're eventually going to get all the topics.
Wow.
I think we have about
Wow.
15 on our list. Bob, give me a nod if I'm right there. I think we have about 15 on our list.
So 15
I know.
topics already.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
right
we're
now they're
taking the
booked up
summer
to
off.
the end of December.
Aren't we? We're taking
Yeah.
the summer off, right, Tanya?
Yes, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, I'm looking
It's
forward
not
to that
Bob
session.
is. Sorry, Jessie?
Well, I'm looking forward to hear more about the specific session about the specific issues you guys can solve together. That's exciting. So I think that's all for today. I would like to thank everybody who attended today's live session. I will send out the recordings for the people, 20 other people signed up who couldn't make it. And I will post on the Facebook group and also on LinkedIn. And if everybody have further questions, you can email to me. And right now, we have people might have questions. We have about 5 minutes to take questions. So
Yep.
Art says he might have questions. So Art,
Bring
what's
it
your
on,
question?
Art.
We have 5 minutes to answer your questions. If anybody else has questions, you can type in the chat window. So Art's question is, does Jonathan use caseware?
We do not
or
use.
just Workpapers?
We use working papers. We use Google Sheets. We use Profile.
Okay, so you do not use caseware at all.
We do not use Caseware.
Did you use it before?
No, I've never used Caseware.
Oh my God, that's so rare. Every time a CPA heard, oh, I just done everything to caseware.
Yeah, it's something that we hear a lot, and we heard, especially early on with the involvement in the Accountants Council. Here, we heard a lot of negative things about using it, about how cumbersome it was and whatnot. So we didn't really see a lot of value to adding that to the stable. I think we get a pretty good documentation process and so on between Google Sheets and then using Profile to actually do the tax.
So now I'm curious because a lot of firms told me caseware is a must-have. They have to use caseware. There's no other way to do it. So can you tell me a little bit briefly, simple process, how you do it without caseware?
Which part? The statements?
Shareholder account issues. Oh, that's Bob. Okay, Bob says shareholder account issues.
Bob, I'm not sure what your question means. But going back to caseware, I've not used it, so it's hard for me to speak to it. If you're talking about notice to reader statements, we actually do those through Google Sheets as well. You
really?
can really, you can do a lot with the G Suite, the platform that's there, and you can make it work really well. There are, of course, there's always idiosyncrasies to different softwares and so on, but we haven't encountered any problem that hasn't been able to be overcome yet.
Okay, so Bob just continue his question is problems with transactions booked to shareholder account.
Bob, are you talking about the fact that we quite often see shareholder loan being used as a dumping ground for personal expenses and, oh, I don't know what this is, so I'm going to stick it in shareholder loan. Well, there's the personal, and that belongs there. But sometimes we have seen files where people just, anything they don't know goes in there. And we'd much rather see an ask the accountant or uncategorized expense, for sure.
Yeah, I know from my perspective, we actually use an ask your accountant and an ask client. And yeah, it's the only things that go into shareholders are actually truly anything that's personal. Otherwise, it sits there and it's part of our monthly cleanup, and then a year-end cleanup, obviously, if it doesn't get cleaned up monthly.
All right, that's all the questions for now. And
I just wanted to ask.
Still have questions.
Art, did I get your question okay?
Art, do you have further questions?
Did I answer it okay?
Was that answer your question? I'm waiting for him to type. He said yes. He will look up to do work papers from now to see how can he use it without caseware.
Okay, and feel free to reach out to me through our networks as well.
Yeah, so everybody can find Tanya and Jonathan in Facebook QBO in Quinty or QBHQ. And if you have a specific question about us, Intro, you can email to me. I can be found everywhere, no matter which social media you use. I'm everywhere, so feel free to find me anywhere. Okay, I want to thank again Tanya and Jonathan and Bob for your time. It's really, really informative session, and I'm looking forward to your webinar. I will look up Tanya's post in the Facebook group for the schedule for your 15 topics. Can't wait for it.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessie. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.